Hey y'all, welcome to the show. I have Chavon with me. I'm excited. I met her through a Facebook page that was like life after the unit that I was on. And so we didn't know each other in prison, but I'm excited to get to know her now. Welcome, Chavon.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. You look beautiful. It's beautiful outside, and I'm excited that you're here and anxious to hear your story. Where do you think that your story began as far as leading you into the criminal justice system?
I think when I first joined the military, well, when I first got to Texas, I think that's when things started going a little downhill for me because I was in the U.S. military. I was in the Army. So once I got to Texas, I just truly believe that I started hanging with the wrong crowd. And once I started hanging with the wrong crowd, I started doing things that I wouldn't normally do, that I didn't grow up doing, or that I was never exposed to.
Did you meet these new people as were they in the military with you or they were outside of the military?
No, they were outside of the military. They were actually civilians. I think that, going out to the clubs and stuff like that and being around those types of people, I started doing things like dancing. When I started dancing, I was introduced to another crowd. And then actually I started like doing drugs, snorting cocaine mostly, and popping X pills. And that was my downward spiral because my crime was actually committed in a strip club. I was charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon.
Tell me about that. Was it one incident or it just sounds
Yes,
like
it
something
was.
kind of popped off.
Yeah, it was one incident. I had never been in trouble a day in my life. And I honestly believe that the type of life that I grew up in, I was very sheltered. And being out in the real world by myself and exposed to a lot of negativity, a lot of negative people, a lot of people that didn't have my best interest at heart led me to those decisions as far as stripping, starting to snort coke, all of that stuff played a major part in my life. I just feel like if I had to if I had to stay with the people that I was originally in the military with instead of strayed away from those friends, then I wouldn't have ended up in the situation that I was in. But I also look at it as a good thing too, because the type of life that I grew up living, I'm not going to lie to you, I was very snobbish. I was very stuck up. I felt like everyone was beneath me. And I mean, even people that had been to prison, I wouldn't talk to them. People that had used drugs, I wouldn't talk to them. But being in prison, you realize that everybody is not the same. Everybody's circumstances are different. Everybody's backgrounds are different. Just because someone went to prison doesn't mean that they're a bad person.
That's something that definitely opened my eyes up too, Siobhan. And I think that neither one of us were raised in an environment where a lot of people were getting arrested. We weren't in poverty communities and we weren't around a lot of substance abuse. And I think that prison did the same thing for me, just like you're saying, it kind of opened
Mm-hmm.
my eyes up as well. I want to kind of go back to that the incident that you got arrested.
Mm-hmm.
And so your family is not used to dealing with the legal system.
Not at all. So I actually had been in New York for like 2 or 3 weeks. I got back to Texas from New York, and I went to this particular strip club that I wasn't normally dancing at. Another dancer and I got into a fight, and one thing led to another, and I end up cutting her with a box cutter. So that's how that's my charge. So once I did that, I called my family and I told them, and you know what they told me? Come home right now. We have your plane ticket. Go to the airport. Come home. So I left everything and I went home. Once I went home, I thought, okay, this will blow over. Everything will be okay. My parents, they, like I said, I was raised really, really good. So my parents got me a house, not a house, got me an apartment. They got me another car. Like everything was going smooth. And at this time, my daughter was 3 years old. I only have one child. She was 3 years old. I was just living my best life, forgetting about what happened in Texas. But lo and behold, I was at my dad's house one day and the phone rang, and it was the sheriff's office. My dad is really like cool, or like really in the community. So they know him, therefore they know me. So when I picked up the phone, they already knew who I was. They was like, look, Texas has a warrant out for your arrest. You need to come and turn yourself in because we don't want to have to come and get you. My dad was outside cutting the front grass. It was the shortest walk to the front door that I ever imagined. And I'm just looking at him cutting the grass like, yeah, I look at my daughter and I'm like, and I just told my dad, I said, bye. I got my daughter in the car. I went to my mom's job and told her, crying and everything. She got my daughter and I just went and turned myself in. And they extradited me back from Georgia to Texas.
Tell me how that process worked with getting extradited. So they held you in the county jail there in Georgia, and then what happened?
They had 30 days to pick me up, and I was counting them 30 days down. You hear me? I was counting them down. But yeah, they eventually came and got me, and it was a long trip. Shackled, the thing, you know how when you travel, you get tired and you'll go stay at a hotel. Yeah, we went and stayed at other jails. So it was
Wow.
a process. And not only did we stay at other jails, but keep in mind, on the way, we had to pick up other people that were getting extradited too. So it was just like different places that I was at. In some of the jails, I was like, what the fuck? Like, y'all got a cigarette machine? Like, just different types of things. I finally got to clean Texas, Bell County. And that's when like reality really set in. I was like, oh my God. I got there, I let my parents know what was going on. I had a court-appointed attorney, but my family felt like, oh no, no, we're not doing court-appointed. No, we're not doing it. So they got me a paid attorney, and I BS you not. I really think that the court appointed, but it did better than the one that paid. And the reason why I say that is my family was all the way in Georgia, so therefore they couldn't come and like check on him and make sure he was doing his job and doing what he was supposed to do. He was feeding my family all kind of BS, like she's going to get probation. This is her first time. She's never been in trouble. She's ex-military. Yada yada yada. Told them to come down so I could go to court. They would be taking me home. No, I went to prison 14 years.
Your first charge, you were ex-military, never been in trouble. I'm just so shocked that yes, you did get in a fight, and yes, you took it to the next level with a weapon, but that happens all of the time. That's a bar fight.
Yes, but this is the catch, and I do understand because I can take accountability. We got into a fight in the club, just a regular fist fight. Where I messed up at is two places. I left and came back, so that's premeditated. And when I cut her on her back, I cut her on her arm, and I cut her on her face. So by me cutting her on her back, it was like she was trying to get away. She was defenseless, you know? So I guess that's why I got the 14 or whatever. But yeah.
I'm not trying to make you relive any trauma, so we can skip over it if you want, but I'm just imagining you have this 3-year-old daughter and how you're feeling about that when they're telling you 14 years.
Yeah, this may sound a little harsh, but it's the truth. You got to understand, when my daughter was 9 months, I left and went to the military. So I was kind of already used to being away. when my parents wanted me to fly back in, that was my first time being there, like stable and not visiting for those like 6 months. It was hard, but I don't think it was as hard as somebody that would be always there would be. You understand what I'm saying?
In a way, I think military, that leaving like that kind of prepared you mentally to be able to handle something like that. I remember at the beginning of my sentence, well, actually, I was in county jail before I knew my sentence, thinking to myself, like, if I had gone away to boot camp, my kids would be okay. They're going to be okay for this. Of course, I thought I was going back home soon. So many people comment across all of my social media platforms comparing boot camp to prison. I'm going to ask you, what is it? Is there a comparison? Are they being realistic?
I don't think it is. I think the only comparison is the discipline. You have someone that you have to listen to. You have someone that you have to answer to. That's it. That's all. But in the military, it's not malicious. It's to just discipline you and to build character. In prison, I feel like it's to discipline you and to break you down.
I'm glad to hear that. I just think I tell certain stories and then they're like, that sounds like boot camp. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
So you were sentenced to 14 years. How much time did you actually do?
I did 10 years. I came up for parole in 7, of course. I knew I wasn't going to make it. I didn't have no lines, no time. I was always in medium custody. I was doing the absolute most all the time. After I got denied that first time, my parents, again, was like, no, we're hiring a parole attorney. We're hiring I was like, oh, shit. So even though I was in and out of medium custody, I was still going to college and stuff like that. But I have a stint where I, end up in medium custody again. But once they paid for that parole attorney, I said, oh no, if I go to medium custody or if I do anything wrong, then it's like me saying, F my parents' money and whatever they got going on. So I couldn't do that to them because they're spending their money to pay for yet another attorney to get me out.
That motivated you to slow down in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you talk about medium custody and how that looks like in a Texas prison?
Medium custody was, oh my God. I'm not gonna lie, it was fun. Sometimes. The only thing that wasn't fun about it is not being able to be in the day room all the time. I did so much in medium custody. I mean, the worst thing about it too is you have a freaking spending limit with commissary, where in general population, I think it had went up to like 75. It was 75 or 85 when I was there. But yeah, other than that, yeah, medium custody wasn't bad. The whole squad wasn't bad because we get to talk shit to everybody all day. If lieutenant wanted somebody crossed out, you know what you got to do. So it was, I think you just get so wrapped up in that type of lifestyle that you forget about anything that's real world related. So yeah, I done got into plenty of fights with cellmates. I've kicked cellmates out. I've made cellmates so uncomfortable that they wanted to leave. All that.
Can we talk about what happens when you get a bad cellmate? In medium custody, for you guys that don't know, that's like G4 custody, and it's a disciplinary move, or if you have like a prior escape charge, you might be housed in medium custody. I spent lots of time in medium custody, but you're in your cell. You're either at work, at chow, or just a couple hours in the day room. Otherwise, you spend a lot of time in your cell in a little 2-man cell. So when you get someone that's not compatible with you, what happens?
I can think of this one incident. I had this girl that I just didn't want in there. I don't know what her personality was. I didn't even know what her name, can't even recall her name. All I know is, she came in friendly, wanting to talk, and I didn't say not one word. I would just stare at her like, don't talk to me. She would ask me. I would not say anything. I just made it very uncomfortable. And 2 days later, she was gone.
How was she able to leave your cell?
I have no clue. I had this other roommate that I got out of there because she was, when you're, what do we call it when we're on lockdown and we have to get, all the dorms have to get searched? It's lockdown, right?
It's
So
lockdown.
we, yeah. So we was on lockdown, and she was a person that likes to exercise, but she sweats real bad, and she kept using the bottom bunk as a stepper, and she kept sweating, and it just pissed me off so bad. Like I just felt like just nasty. What I did at Lifestyle was that was her bunk. She was on the bottom bunk. So when she laid down, it was like I said, it was almost 9 o'clock lights out. So I knew they was gonna come around for their last check. So I went up to her and leaned over her on the bed and said, as soon as they turn these lights off, I'm gonna cut you up. Oh my God, she was banging on the door, and she got out and she filed a life endangerment on me. But I didn't care. I mean, how could they prove it?
That's one thing about in there, that if the officers or the camera don't see it or hear it, it didn't happen. An inmate's word is nothing. So if they feel threatened, they can say, yes, I feel threatened, but all they can do is then get moved. So that's called an OPI. In there, Chavon, did you feel like it's a whole different set of rules that you lived by in comparison to out here?
Absolutely. 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 Because in there, if you don't like somebody, yeah, you can cuss them out, you can cross them out, but it is what it is. Like, you can really handle your business in there if you don't like somebody. Out here in the free world, if you don't like somebody, the first thing I think about is, damn, I'm not going back to jail. So I still have some of that prison mentality. I'm not gonna lie, because sometimes I can talk a lot of shit, but I know I'm not gonna fight. But if my words can make you hit me, then I will call the police on you. Therefore, you'll go to jail. And guess what I'm doing? I'm crossing you out. I'm just crossing you out in the free world instead of in prison.
So cross you out is definitely a prison term. It's one that's so common, especially among women on women units. And officers can cross you out, or other inmates can cross you out. Have you ever seen anybody cross out somebody and make them lose their parole?
No, I haven't. When I was back in college, because I got my degree while I was in there, I was in, what dorm I was in? I think I was like in K1 or something like that. And it was count time. An officer came by, and I had, how we would tear the sheets and, like tie our hair up. And she came by during count, and she was like, give me that off of your head or whatever. And me being a little snobby person that I am, it wasn't intentional. I don't even think I did it. But when she asked for it the second time, I wasn't getting up off my butt to give it to her. So I threw it. And I threw it on the floor, right? So you pick it up. She said that I hit her with it. Therefore, I assaulted her. Therefore, I had to go back to meet him custody. She know I didn't hit her.
And if you had, it was a piece of sheet. It was a piece of cloth. It definitely wasn't a threatening.
Yeah.
So you got a charge for that.
Went back to meet him custody. And
Wow.
You're in school and you go to meet him custody, that's it. That class is a wrap.
Let's talk about some of your college classes and what you took there. What was available for you to take? What did you get your degree in?
I took so many classes, but all of my classes was geared towards business because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do when I get out. I just knew that no offense to anyone that does these jobs, but I know that I'm not going to do these jobs. So I knew that when I got out, I wasn't going to want to work fast food or, in some type of factory or anything like that. I'm proud military, so I had that on my resume, So I geared everything towards business because I didn't know exactly what it was that I wanted to do. So I took a lot of business class, I took my basic classes or whatever. But also when I got out of prison, I still went to college because where I lived at was in the Gatesville area. I lived in Fort Hood, clean area. Therefore, I was able to go back to Central Texas College where I originally started at and got my degree. Once I did that, then I started working in like administration fields and stuff like that until I worked my way up. I would always keep a job. I'm not going to lie, 6 months to a year. I would soak up everything that I needed so I could build my resume to go to the next job. Once I moved from the Killeen area to San Antonio, which is a bigger city, that's when everything started like booming. Like I was started getting more and more job offers, more and more opportunities, even though I had a felony. And one thing about it is every time I went for an interview, I always presented myself well. I've always dressed well. I always tried to speak well. And I also always let them know, even before they asked, that I had been in trouble before, because I'd rather for them to hear it from me than to hear it on a piece of paper that's not going to dictate who I am.
Are you comfortable with giving an example how you do that, just so somebody can hear? Because there's somebody out there that's going to see this that is looking for a job and has that felony jacket. How do you just say you've been in trouble?
Okay, and this is speaking also because, you know, my career is in HR. My career is in recruiting. So once they ask me, you know, the standard questions or whatever, and they at the end they ask you, well, do you have anything that you want to say? Is there anything that you want us to know about you? And I'll say yes. When I was young, that's the key. When I was young, I got into a fight at a local bar. Who doesn't get into a fight at a bar? You know, 9 out of 10 people, I got into a fight at a local bar. And at that bar, I ended up assaulting someone, and I landed in prison for that. That happened over, at that time, I was already locked up 10 years. So that happened over 10 years ago. Because even though that we do a 7-year criminal background check, it's from the day that you were convicted. So anytime that question is on an application, have you been convicted of a crime in the past 7 years? And you've been locked up 10 years, rightfully, no, you haven't. You haven't. You really don't have to disclose that information. But every time I know that I've disclosed that information, I've always gotten the job because they felt like I was honest, because I did not have to disclose that information. But I always make it seem like it's something that can happen to everybody. Or I was very young and naive at the time, which I was 23.
I love how you said I was very young, and a lot of people, might I say, I mean, I can't give a percentage, but most people that I was incarcerated with committed their crime when they were young. And so that's definitely something. And then the way that you said it, you didn't glamorize it in any way. Yeah, I got in this fight because this girl, you know, you didn't put the blame on anybody else. You didn't say somebody attacked me and da, da, da. You didn't say all that. You said, I did this and this was my punishment, and here I am now. So I love that.
Yeah, even when I do interviews now, that's one thing I look for. If someone is always blaming another person or not taking accountability, they're not going to take accountability if I give them a position there. I can't come to work because my dog's sick, or I can't come to work because it's always going to be something.
Chavon, you spent 10 years in prison, and your daughter was pretty young when you went in. Were you able to maintain a relationship with her while you were gone?
Oh, yes. Yes, I was. They came to visit. I always wrote. I always sent money. And that's the one thing that my mom still laughs about. She said, I don't understand how you was buying her school supplies and how was you getting her bicycles and clothes and stuff, and you were locked up. Mom, I had a trick. I had them doing it.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Was it a pen pal situation?
Yes, I had multiple pen pals, and multiple pen pals served each purpose. And I had one, and actually we're still friends today. He's a very good friend. Even when I got out, he was on top of everything for me. Yeah, they took care of me along with my family, and then did things for my daughter. Make sure like she had her Christmas stuff, she had her school supplies at the first of school, her birthday gifts, everything.
How did you meet them?
Girl, putting my picture on the internet, like getting somebody to we have the free ads. So I will automatically send my pictures to the free ads. But the ones that I had to pay for, I would get my cousin to do it for me because, I put her down with the hustle, and she was ready to do it.
So it's like prison pen pals, write an inmate, these type of websites.
I think Meet an Inmate was my favorite one. If back in that era, it was $40 to get on that site.
Right before I got out, TDCJ passed a policy saying inmates can't be online or on any kind of social media actively pursuing to meet people they don't know. So it's like they made this policy, but family is still out here putting them on those websites. So it's really hard for them to enforce that policy because technically, especially in women's prisons, there's just in Texas and women's prisons, you're not really going to see a cell phone. So it's not like they could even do it themselves if they wanted to.
Exactly. That's one thing I've never seen. I've never seen that in the women's prison. Yeah, even being on lockdown when they had the whole cell phone thing, I was like, it's none on this unit.
What year did you leave Lane Murray?
2012.
Okay, so in 2012, I was in F dorm. So we were on the unit at the same time, but we just didn't live together. So we didn't.
Yeah, it was October of 2012.
Because I remember when they heard the typewriter and they thought it was a cell phone. A new boots heard a typewriter, and I wonder if that's the incident you're talking about. They locked the whole unit down. So let's talk about the kind of contraband that you have seen on women's prisons.
I didn't really see any like major contraband. I know the contraband that I had, it was bought in by an officer that was my friend that in turn lived in Fort Hood Clean area. That when I got out, we were still friends. I was friends with her boyfriend before I even went in. She would bring me perfume. She would bring me earrings, makeup, just little stuff that doesn't cause any harm. I feel like in the females' prison, it's always little stuff. It's nothing like really major. Like I don't even think I ever seen a shank.
I agree. And they have kind of all of these policies geared towards contraband that they find in men's prisons. And it just doesn't really, it doesn't translate in a women's unit. It's kind of ridiculous, some of the things that we have to go through, because honestly, that's what we have is free world makeup. So.
Makeup, and I had like makeup from, oh my God, even like makeup that they didn't even sell on commissary anymore. You know how some old school person would still have the makeup, or they could get the makeup and you pay like 50 stamps for it. I had all that stuff.
Let's talk about currency in a female prison. What kind of things are valuable, and like what's the most stamps you've paid for something?
I think the most stamps I paid for anything would be either earrings or makeup, and it would be probably around 50 to 60 stamps at the most. And then we have to get into people that you get to wash for you. You pay them, in commissary. So sometimes you'll pay them between $10 to $20 in commissary to wash your clothes for those 2 weeks.
You had a friend from your not your hometown, but from where you lived prior to being incarcerated. And she was there working on the unit. Did anybody know that?
I think only 2 inmates knew. And the reason why one of them knew is because I knew her from the hometown. All of us knew each other. So, and this was back when I was in F dorm. I remember one time she bought me and the other girl, but it was like Popeyes or Church's chicken. I'm telling you, it was the best chicken in the goddamn world. And then it was another inmate that she had got really cool with that had been, locked up for a while. But that inmate ended up trying to use her to get to her girlfriend on Mountain View. So basically tried to set her up. So that officer ended up quitting.
How did she try to set her up?
To tell that she was bringing her stuff as well. Like I mentioned before, she would bring me perfume, earrings and stuff. So she was bringing this girl the same thing, being a friend.
So she basically wanted to make it look like, hey, I have this inappropriate relationship with this officer, and I need a unit transfer.
Me off the unit to get to Mountain View to my girlfriend.
Have you ever seen any officer-inmate romantic relationships?
No, I haven't. I haven't seen anyone else, but I can say for myself, and if Constance Darnell is watching this, she can vouch for this. Constance Darnell I was in F dorm, and it was this officer, and she seen me and him coming out of the closet. That's all I'm gonna say.
In the utility closet?
Yeah, because I lived in C dorm, and Constance lived in D dorm, and then the little, what do they call that? The office thing they be in, and it's a door right beside it, right there.
The janitor's closet. I remember. I mean, I don't remember that incident, but I definitely remember that closet. And through the 10 years that I did, I definitely knew that closet was used for that. In fact, there was an officer that got caught in the closet red-handed with an inmate, and he got walked off the unit. And then the girl got a unit transfer, and he got to come back to work. I was really surprised that he got to come back to work. Did it end when you got out of prison, or did it end?
Oh, way before. Like, that was the first and last time. I think he ended up getting walked off the unit for somebody else.
Fast forward to you serve 10 years and you make parole. What does that look like for your family? Like, how did you learn that you made parole?
You know, how did I find out? I think they gave me a piece of paper, and I had like an F something 2 or something, where I had to go through changes. The thing about it is it was the longest process, because even after I graduated from changes, I think I was supposed to get out in August. Or the 1st of September. I didn't end up getting out until October, because my plans kept changing because I don't have any family in Texas. Well, I was going to go to Houston to my uncle's house. For some reason, they denied my parole plans there. I have no idea. At the time I had no idea. So I was like, what is going on? So I was going to parole to a friend's house in Houston. Her mother, that the girl that I was locked up with, they denied it again. And I was like, well, forget it. I'll go to a halfway house in Houston. You know, they denied that. Come to find out, Houston was not accepting any more parolees that that were not from there or did not catch their case there. So I ended up getting out, and I had to go to a halfway house in Austin, which, hey, that's fine. It's close to Killeen. I've been in Austin multiple times. I've lived in Austin or whatever. I got to the halfway house, and it was co-ed. It was co-ed, and it was feds was there also. When I got out, first of all, it was freaking culture shock. I'm looking around like, what are people walking around with these phones, headphones, laptops? What? This too much is going on. But I quickly, adapted. I got to the halfway house, and I've always been a go-getter. Like, I can't sit around. Got there. My parents, oh my God, they just started sending boxes and boxes of stuff. I told my dad, we're not supposed to have a cell phone. Dad, how to cell phone, and get me a cell phone. He did that. He was sending me money, everything. So every day at the halfway house, we had the opportunity to go out to find a job. There was people there for months, which I couldn't understand, that still didn't have a job. I got out and got a job in a week. Although, actually, it was 2 jobs. I got offered 2 jobs the same day. One was at McDonald's, because I was like, fuck, I got to start somewhere. And the other one was at Wet Seal in the mall. So, of course, I'm going to take the Wet Seal. Once I got back to the halfway house that day, my counselor was like, we're going to send you to Temple, to the THAP program, through the THAP program. I was like, I'm not going to Temple. I don't know nobody in Temple, even though Killeen, Fort Hood area is right next door to Temple. I don't want to go to Temple. So she's like, okay, well, yeah, I see what I can do. A couple of days later, she came back and said, we're sending you to that program. We're just going to send you to Killeen. Oh, okay. Okay. I was stationed there. I know everyone there. Like, I have friends. I have like lifelong friends that I'm okay with that. So what the THAP program is they put you in a hotel for 90 days. You have 90 days to find a job, and you have 90 days to find you a place. I was out of there in 60. I found me a place and I had me a job.
What was your
Yep.
job in Killeen?
When I first got out, I worked at Glamour Shots in the Killeen Mall. I was doing hair and makeup. And what's funny is a girl that I used to dance with, and I'm not gonna lie, I was mean. I'm telling you, I was a snobbish little bitch. I was snob. And this is how God works. This particular girl that was now the studio director of Glamour Shots, I walked in for the interview. I knew her face, but I was like, I was getting her confused between another girl I used to dance with. But I know that I was absolutely horrible to her. Horrible. I'm talking about like horrible. And this girl gave me a job. She gave me a job. And she told me, she said the reason, later on, because we became real good friends. And she said later on, she told me, she was like, the reason why I gave you a job, because I know the situation you just got out of. She was like, I could have been there. She said, you was very mean to me, but I still want to give you that chance. And at that time at Glamour Shots, I was making $10 an hour. And I thought that was something. That was something. She pulled me to the side and she was like, that's no money. You want the commission. So how we get the commission is I'm already doing the hair and makeup. So that's 5% of whatever they spend. If I book their appointment, that's 5%. So that's a total of 10%. Glamour Shots pictures back then portraits were not cheap at all. They were so expensive that we would try to get people to finance. We had to finance, and once we run their finance and we see that they're got approved for $10,000, we're going to try to get that $10,000. So on one occasion, I remember also a person got approved for $8,000. I had booked them and I did their hair and makeup. So that is, if they spent almost the whole $8,000. So that's $800 I done made in about 3 to 4 hours. So once I got a taste of that, I was booking. I was their top booker. I was their top booker to the point where I hadn't moved up. But I ended up leaving that job because I felt bad. I felt like I was getting over on people. Who wants to spend $8,000, $10,000 on pictures? And if you don't spend the $8,000, hypothetically speaking, say you come in there and you spend $4,000, then I'm going to call you the next day with this, oh my God, corporate called me. They loved your pictures. They want you on our wall of fame. The wall of fame is actual pictures of people that you see when you go in Glamour Shots. We're going to give you a 30 by 40 for $500. We're going to be fully retouched. And I was just felt bad hustling these people. So that's why I end up leaving that position.
It's interesting that you kind of had a taste of that, but you didn't go into sales because you were good at it.
Actually, I did. And when I went into sales now, remember I told you, when you book the appointment, it's 5%. If I'm doing the hair and makeup on, that's another 5%, that's 10%. When I sold them, that was 4%. So I would get, if I did all 3 of them, then I would get, I got a total of 14% on whatever they bought. I did get into the sales.
And then, but once you left Glamour Shots, you didn't pursue a career in sales.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Let's talk about what you're doing now.
Okay, so what I'm doing now is recruiting and human resources. And the reason why I got into this is because I understand that a lot of people that get out of prison, they have a hard time finding jobs. Nobody will hire them. And that used to really bother me because I feel like if you give a person a chance at something good, then they're going to stay there, you know. So that's why I got into it. And, you know, my first recruiting position, I was hiring for the HEB warehouse out in San Antonio. And, you know, it's just something about when they come in, like their demeanor, the way I don't want to say the way they look, it's just something that eludes from them. And I know inside that they have been to prison. So I try to make them feel as comfortable as possible and let them know it's okay. Like, as quiet as kept, I'm finna give you this job. Just because of that. Just because of that. And I did. Now, if you mess me around or anything like that, then of course, yeah, I'm gonna fire you. But I'm gonna give you this opportunity because I know you just got out and I know you're looking for a chance.
I want to definitely get some pointers from you, from someone in that position that you hold, where you are someone in charge of hiring. What are your best tips for people coming in looking for a job? We already kind of talked about being honest. What else?
The first thing, especially when you're doing a face-to-face interview, anything, go clean cut. Clean cut. Don't do a whole bunch of makeup. You know, make sure your clothes are nice, pressed, clean, or whatever. Because the first thing people are going to look at is your appearance. They're going to look at your appearance and they're going to judge you by your appearance. You can tell them after that, or they can know after that that you've been incarcerated, but you don't have to look like you've been incarcerated. You don't have to look like what you've been through, if that makes sense. The next thing is, whatever job you're applying for, do your research. Do your research or know a little bit about the position, because when they ask you questions, we don't like to hear a whole lot of I don't know. Be able to speak confidently about it. And if it's something you don't know, or it's something a question that you don't understand, can you please rephrase the question? I don't clearly understand what you're saying or what you're asking, you know. And just be yourself, not too much of yourself where you're unprofessional, but just make sure you know what you're talking about. Make sure you're speaking plainly, make sure you're speaking firm, and making sure you're speaking confidently.
Thanks for that, Chavon. We're almost to our hour, but I want to make sure and give you the opportunity if there was something you had in mind to talk about that we didn't cover today.
No, I think we covered a lot.
We did. We went all the way around. We really did. I appreciate you so very much. And anytime you want to come back, you're more than welcome. You have given us a lot of insight, and thank you so much.
No, thank you. I watch what you're doing. You're going to Congress. You're trying to get the windows. I was like, oh my God, this girl is the truth. I said, I like what she's doing.